from the Penn Libraries.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry you can't see me. I'm going to come over this way. It's a little weird. Welcome to the Rare Book Department of the Free Library of Philadelphia. I'm Janine Pollock, the department head here, and I want to thank Larry and Barbara Schoenberg, as well as the Penn Libraries, for their inspired philosophy of special collections as foremost teaching collections. It speaks to the very heart of this library's mission, to inspire curiosity and guide learning for the larger community. And I'd like to acknowledge and thank my staff for putting this philosophy into action as well, in imparting the history of written communication to audiences ranging from nursery school classes to senior citizen groups, as well as the trifecta of Peter Salabrass seminars the past couple of days. How many books? So many books, so little time. And it's my pleasure and privilege to introduce tonight's speaker. As a distinguished art historian, Will Noel crystallized the application of digital technologies to manuscript studies. Since 1999, Will has spearheaded the conservation of the Archimedes palimpsest, a unique Byzantine prayer book made up of parchments which contain hidden writings from 3 original previously unknown texts, including treatises written by Archimedes. Using powerful particle accelerator, Will and his team were able to uncover the hidden text and publish all of their images and findings on the internet, available to anyone for free under the Creative Commons license. Before Will came to Philadelphia to serve as founding director of the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies at the University of Pennsylvania, he served as curator of manuscripts and rare books at the Walters Art Museum in Baltimore, a position he'd held since 1997. Prior to that, a stint at the British Academy, postdoctoral research fellow in the Department of History of Art, Cambridge University, and before that, assistant curator of manuscripts at the J. Paul Getty Museum in Los Angeles. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming, with apologies to the kinks, TED Talker, manuscript stalker, stage walker, Creative Commons hawker, Dr. Will Noel.
How absolutely fantastic is that? You know, I have to say that that there are various stories going around about how I came to be here and why I came to be here. But as many of you may know, my wife is a stalwart member of the Special Collections Centre at Penn Libraries. And if you ask her why I'm here, she'll say that she threatened to leave and that she's a retention hire. That I'm a retention. I'm such a fool it might be true. The other thing is that I should say that I am a gentleman, and my wife would like to say a few words before I begin. So at that point, can I introduce you please to Dr. Lynn Ransom?
Just remember that retention hire and what you owe me. Really, all I want to say is just a few thank yous and a few announcements. Let me get the announcements out of the way. I'm very happy to say that after 2 years, we now have the 3rd annual Symposium. I forgot the name of it. The 3rd annual Schoenberg Symposium on Manuscript Studies in the Digital Age, Cantus Scriptis. This is Technologies and Medieval Songs. These are 6 essays taken from that symposium that I think we have some defective copies that were on sale very cheaply. The printer didn't do the color plates in black and white. So those were out. The good copy, the non-defective copy, will be up for sale fairly soon, and there are flyers in your folder that will direct you to the press if you want to look further into that. I also want to say we started the day actually with a graduate student workshop that was led by Marie Turner and Alex Devine. Stand up. workshop was entitled Navigating Knowledge, and it was a graduate student driven, graduate student led. There were very few grown-ups, if that's what you want to call us, there. And I'm very pleased about this because I think one of the things that we've wanted to do with the Schoenberg Symposium is start a conversation, and this is starting a conversation at a level where I don't think people have a lot of voices, and that's with graduate students sometimes. So I hope that this is something that will become part of the program of the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies as well as the symposium. Would you like to say a few words about how it went? I hear it was wonderful, it went successfully, there were a lot of good...
It was wonderful, it went successfully.
Thank you, Alex. Other than that, let me just go through a few quick thank yous. I want to thank Professor Emily Steiner. She actually came up with the idea. I usually go around begging for people to help me with the symposium, and Emily contacted me 2 years ago and said that she wanted to do a symposium on this topic, on taxonomies of knowledge. And it's a perfect topic for to kick off the Schoenberg Institute of Manuscript Studies. We're looking at the book as an agent of organizing, of gathering, and disseminating knowledge, and that's what we want to do with the Institute. I'd also like to thank my colleagues at the Free Library, Janine Pollock. It's because of them that we can continue to do this. They're very important partners in this enterprise. And many thanks to her staff, who should stand up and take a bow for having to put up with all of the madness that we inflict on them once a year. I'd also like to thank... I have wonderful colleagues in the Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Penn. David McKnight, who really has put up with a lot since he, for some reason, chose to hire me. I'm sorry, David. I just get these ideas. Lynn Farrington, John Pollock, Nancy Shawcross, Andrea Gottschalk, who's designed the programs and the posters, and Alita Arthur, who's not here tonight, I don't think, but she makes the event happen. She makes it special with the receptions, the coffee and the food and everything that will keep us all happy and awake tomorrow. And a very special shout out to Carton Rogers, who's the library's director. He's made all of this possible, and he never had to support this. This was never part of his, maybe, I don't know, maybe it was, but he didn't have to do any of this, and he continues to support not only me and the crazy ideas that I have, but more importantly with the Schoenbergs and the Schoenberg Institute and making it all possible. So thank you, Carton. And last but not least, the Schoenbergs, Larry and Barbara. There is a litany of things that they've done that I recite every single year. They've given their time, their enthusiasm, their unconditional support to everything that's gone on the 6th floor involving manuscript studies. Most importantly, they've given us their books. And that will become the foundation of manuscript studies in Penn, and what a legacy to leave to a university and to the world. So thank you for that. You can just wave. You can say hi.
Hi. I tried that already today once.
So apropos of thanking Larry and Barbara and celebrating what will surely be really a great legacy at Penn, it's fitting that we are starting with the theme of taxonomies of knowledge. I'm not going to speak too much more about this because Emily will take on the mantle tomorrow morning and lead us through this very fascinating intellectual exercise that we're about to embark upon. So just sit back and enjoy. Janine has done a wonderful job of introducing Noel. So I will hand it over to you. Onward and upward, Mr. Director.
Lynn, thank you very much. Taxonomies of knowledge. I'm not normally a very good abstract thinker, but I thought that what I would do is look in a rather light-hearted way, up to a point, at the conditions under which manuscripts have been studied by me, and how they will be studied in the future, and particularly at Penn. And I also want to ruminate just a little bit on how the structure of knowledge changes in a period of revolution. And make no mistake, we're going through that revolution. And I think that it's worth thinking about, and dare I say it in a rather academic way, problematizing the relationship between the digital image and the medieval manuscript. When I was a lad, this was my library. It is actually, it might look formidable to you. It is formidable. It's a fantastic library. It was a fantastic building, George Gilbert Scott building. And I spent most of my time on South Front 5, which you can't quite see in the picture. But it's a wonderful, it was a wonderful relationship between the books and the building. It just worked perfectly until about the time that I arrived, when there were just one too many books. But from the architect's point of view, not from our point of view. And I would go to this library, and this is where I would read. And I would read privately, and I would read in silence in the reading room. It would be my own personal odyssey and journey. And I was alone with my books for about 7 years. It's not where I was taught. It might have been where I taught myself, but it's not where I was taught. I wasn't taught in this building. There were no teaching spaces in this building. There was nothing in this building. I was taught in this building, which is Scroop Terrace, which was the School of History of Art and Architecture. And I fell in love with books because of a truly extraordinary man whom I haven't spoken to since I got married, called George Henderson. And this guy was a genius. I used to go to his lectures, and I used to find them so refreshing that I would literally come out laughing. He was a short man, and he spoke like this. But he was really a magical teacher. And he's still alive. He retired to Nig, which is the home of the great Nig Cross slab. He bought the manse so that he had the keys to the church, so that he could go and look at the Nig Cross slab 24 hours a day. And that's what he's doing. It's somewhere near Aberdeen. And he used to teach me with things called slides. And you know, as an undergraduate, I could never see a medieval manuscript. And for all his brilliance, George never took me to see a medieval manuscript. And I was taught through these things, which he guarded jealously. And he taught me the history of art in about 200 slides. And that was it. And he would put them in this slide projector, which he always had a bit of a fight with. Sometimes he would put the slides in upside down. And then he would be extremely entertaining and thoughtful about Mould and Faltenstiel fold patterns. And he was the most brilliant man, and it was a fundamental education. This was where I learnt. I read in one place and couldn't see a medieval manuscript. I learnt in another, and I couldn't see in a manuscript. Now, where was I creative? I was creative here. That's Downing College, Cambridge. It was a wonderful college. It was built on a sort of campus style. It's about 10 years older than Jefferson's campus in Virginia. And comparing the two is a rather wonderful thing, because this is much bigger, it's sort of imperial looking, it's Doric. Jefferson's campus is the most beautiful, cozy, wonderful space that I've yet been to in this country. They're very different in feel, even though they're both ancient revival things. And my study was up there on the right, and that is roughly what it looked like. This is where I was creative, or at least I tried to be creative. And it's not me. It's the best representation of me I could get, because it's pretty disorganized and there are 2 wine bottles at the back. No, I could never grow a beard like that. No, I should say that I found nearly all the slides of this lecture on Flickr. And so I searched for untidy study. And I got to this guy, and this guy's obviously very proud of this photo, because he put all reserved rights on it on Flickr, so no one's allowed to use it for any purpose, including public lectures, which of course demonstrates the absurdity of copyright, because I just did a quick snatch and grab and I'm showing it to you, and you know, if he ever finds out, he could try and sue me. But the main point I'm making is that I never got to see a manuscript. My reading was in one place, my learning was in another, and my creativity was in another. And that was more years ago than I care to think, but it wasn't so very long ago. You know, the astonishing thing is that the conditions of special collections haven't really changed that much. A lot has changed in terms of learning in 30 years. The conditions of special collections haven't changed that much. This is the Houghton Library at Harvard. That's where the books are. You can read them there in silence. There's no real classroom space there. There's no digital humanities going on in there at all. It's just the books. It's just not changed. I got this image from Flickr too, as well. It's all rights reserved as well, by the way, because Harvard are very, very close with their images. And they can sue me too, if they want. Great collections, same old model. The Beinecke at Yale, an all rights reserved image from Flickr, by the way. Fantastic collections. They've got a reading room. Are you really engaging in a digital humanities way with all the possibilities of technology for creative study in an environmental place? Are you actually doing that at the Beinecke? No, you're not. Morgan Library. No, you're not. My dear friend and colleague, the curator of manuscripts in the Morgan Library, is in the front row, but he can beat me up later. The Walters Art Museum. No, you're not. The Free Library in Philadelphia. Wonderful collections. Do an awful lot of things spectacularly well. But is this a place where you can really engage with technology and work with technology and medieval manuscripts and be taught in one environment and be creative with special collections? No, that's not either. This, by the way, is my second favorite manuscript in Philadelphia. My favorite manuscript in Philadelphia is a Schoenberg Isidore Etymologies, but that's another story. This is the greatest 13th century Psalter in America, and it's one of the great treasures. It's one of the signature manuscripts, the signature books of Philadelphia. It's called the Lewis Psalter. It's open to Psalm 18. The heavens shall show forth the glory of God. If you look at the digital environment that we now live in, and I'm not going to talk about the history of the digital environment, but we now live in a digital world. If you look at where interesting digital humanities work is being done, it's not being done in places with great special collections. So, for example, the Center for Digital Theology at St. Louis University is doing a fantastic thing. It is providing a portal called TPen, funded by the Mellon Foundation, where anybody can upload the images of their manuscripts, and it provides you with a transcription tool to crowdsource the transcriptions of those manuscripts. So you could put up your manuscript there, and you can say to the world, let's jointly transcribe this manuscript together. And this is actually hugely important. And this is the reason why it's important. You know, digitization levels the playing field with the printed book almost totally, which is fantastic if you're a manuscript fan. The thing that it doesn't do is the thing that we can't do yet, and the reason that printed books still have an advantage over us is because they're machine searchable. You can search through the text of these things, and you can't search through the text of a manuscript because it hasn't been transcribed, and computer character recognition isn't good enough to do it. Now, over the next few years, and particularly with Arabic manuscripts, for reasons that you'll work out in just a second, optical character recognition, computer character recognition of various scripts is going to make great strides forwards. It's already doing it. But so you optical character recognize this stuff, but you're still going to need professors, graduate students, undergraduate students to work through that stuff and to turn it into a decent transcription of any particular medieval manuscript. And once that job is done, printed books need to watch out for themselves, because we're all going to be reading texts and studying text from before the age of printing. It's going to be a multicolored world instead of a black and white one. But St. Louis has no manuscripts. Another really interesting project is Digital Mapamundi. It's a project where you can put any map in the world and link it to any other map and any other site on that map and have links out of it. It's developed by a true humanist genius called Martin Foys, and he's at Drew University, no holdings. Stanford are doing great things. Shared Canvas for an annotation tool for manuscripts, not just transcriptions, not just maps, but a general annotation tool for manuscripts where people can work on the same things. Stanford has great digital stuff. It doesn't have great manuscripts. The digital humanities are moving into libraries, and I think that there's a very strong case to make that this should be the case. And one of the great labs in this country is MITH, the Maryland Institute for Technology in the Humanities, who've done an awful lot of work on manuscript material. And this is the only image of MITH that I could find on Flickr, which rather surprised me. But that's embedded in the libraries, and that's where people actually do talk and do research work. But they don't have medieval manuscripts to play with. There is this really interesting disjunction between special collections on the one hand and where digital stuff is really happening on the other. There's a guy called Larry Schoenberg. Larry realized 20 years ago that this situation was a nonsense. For 40 years, Larry has been involved in the world of manuscripts. And today, and unrolling over the next few months, is the culmination of his passion and his philanthropy with the foundation of the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies. Guided by the vision of its founder, the mission of the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies at UPenn is to bring manuscript culture, modern technology, and people together to provide access to and understanding of our cultural heritage locally and around the world. What's he done to do this? Well, for 40 years he's been collecting fantastic medieval manuscripts, and he's giving them to UPenn. This is one of my personal favorites. It's a Boethius Latin translation of Aristotle's De Interpretatione, made at Fleury in the 9th century with additions in the 11th. This is William of Conches' Philosophia Mundi. William of Conches died in 1150. This manuscript was written within 20 years of his death. This is an entirely practical kind of mathematical manual made in the... Amy, where was it made? Italy. Okay, it was made in Italy. And it's got these wonderful drawings that go along with it. It's just a fantastic practical book. This is a book on encryption, a wonderful humanist production that was the presentation copy for Pope Calixtus III. So if you can't read a papal document, it might not be because your paleography skills aren't any good, and you might have to go and find that book to find out what it says. This is just, 4 random books that I chose that illustrate that the manuscripts that Larry and Barbara have collected together over the last 40 years are awesome, wonderful things. And unlike many a collector, Larry wanted to share, and so Larry gave them to Penn. Now, if you have a good collection, people will come and see it. And I have to say that our reader services department is completely fantastic, and is completely fantastic with undergraduate students and graduate students and senior scholars. Undergraduate students is fantastic, They walk in, they don't know anything. They're treated with respect, and they say they want to see a medieval manuscript, and John Pollock says, "Would you like fries with that?" And then he's so knowledgeable about the collections that he'll say, "It's not really fries that you want, dear. It's another manuscript that's going to put this one into a good light." And what we do, what our reader services department does for undergraduates and graduates at this university is the likes of which I have just never, ever seen. And that's why this room is packed, and that's why Larry gave our manuscripts to Penn. I would say... that we could be a little bit more discriminating. Here is John showing some books to Mrs. Cheney. The other thing is that our academic engagement with this collection is totally fantastic. It's totally fantastic, and it's going to be totally essential moving forward. Which gives me a point to say that I was trying to make in a meeting this morning, and I know that some faculty are here, David and Rita are here. If you are doing a course and you want to buy a book, or not even if you want to buy a book, I'm going to plant the idea into your head right now. As you're teaching this term, please think of a book that you might want to buy and let me know, because we have money to buy them and we want to. And what I want to see is a bidding war. What I want to see is a bidding war between faculty as they make their pitches to me on bended knee, saying, you've got to buy this one and not Stallybrass's one because it's far more important. That's what I want to see. It really will help. I mean, there's nothing so energizing for students, for staff, and I think ultimately for faculty and for teaching and engagement with the past than acquiring a book. It's just that, curators do it all the time, and they can't get enough of it. But if you want to be part of that, that would be great. So this is what happened today in Meyerson. We had graduate students coming round and talking. I have to say, I didn't hear much of it, but the talk that I heard was just astonishingly good and engaged. It was on Isidore etymologies. And it's just a fabulous thing. This is so far from the world that I grew up in, I cannot tell you. And just in case you thought that all the action was happening downstairs, at exactly the same time, upstairs, John Pollock was giving a class with a professor from Swarthmore on the early English novel. We need a bit of space here. Something's coming. So we've got the books and we've got the people. You know, the other thing is that these people are really engaged with technology. In terms of the digital humanities and professors doing research right now, I'm still finding out the ground. And I certainly hope to see more. I would say that where the real dynamism is happening at Penn is in a pedagogical environment. It's where faculty and students are doing new things in a learning environment. And what I want to do, and they're doing it in the library. They're doing it at the Information Commons, where Anu Vendatam runs just a fantastic shop. And that place is always packed. And I want to take the energy and the creativity that's going on in the Information Commons in a pedagogical environment and toss a coin and flip the coin and turn that into a research production. Because that, I think, that undergraduate level energy, that graduate level energy is where we're really going to make a difference. Of course, we're not doing it yet with our special collections, but we're going to get there. And, you know, I should say that Larry didn't just give us our collection. He had the vision in 1996 to found the Schoenberg Center for Electronic Text and Image, which puts us, in terms of digitization, in a very, very good place. We've digitized nearly all our medieval manuscripts. We have 2 million digital images of cultural heritage objects. And that's because of Larry. And without that, those digital images in the bank, we couldn't be thinking right now of the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies. It would be premature. We also have a front end, and we're doing lots of interesting things with the front end. This is our genealogical roll that the students were looking at this afternoon, and it's mapped out, and we've got a complete transcription of it, thanks to Marie and Amy, I think, principally. So thank you very much for that. I just highlighted one thing under the TO map there. It says that this is a map of the entire inhabited world. It's surrounded by water and divided into 3 parts, Asia, Africa, and Europe. And you'd have thought that something so simple would be easy to represent. But don't try and do GIS on this one, people, because they've got Africa on the left and Europe on the right. Which begs a question about, you know, how they went around this. This is defective, this copy. I don't know how much you pay for it. The other thing is that the Schoenberg database of manuscripts is the premier research tool in the world if you want to trace the provenance of medieval manuscripts. How many records now?
About 185,000.
185,000 records.
90,000 manuscripts.
Representing 90,000 manuscripts. That's more manuscripts than are in the British Library. So, by the way, in what happens, I want to make you understand that I did love my education, and I hope I learnt something. And I don't want to stop that. If you want to go and read a book quietly, you can do that. And we will have a state-of-the-art reading room where you can go and read. and you're going to get fantastic natural light, which was always deprived to me at Cambridge, and you're going to have the state-of-the-art service of John Pollock instead of the grouchy Geoffrey. But what you want to do is to take this book environment, this teaching environment, and this creative, hopefully creative environment, and put it in one place. And that's the Special Collections Centre that is currently being built on the 6th floor of Van Pelt. This is the first glimpse of the Special Collections Centre that Rita has seen, and hence she stood up to have a look at it, and she's somewhat disappointed that this is only an artist's impression. I could show you a photograph of the construction site that is the 6th floor, Rita, but it would be even less informative than this slide. But I do assure you that we are going to open the Special Collections Centre on February the 4th, and we'll be fully up and running by the end of spring break, March the 11th. It will have a lecture theatre, an exhibition space, it'll have the Furness Shakespeare Library, it'll have 4 seminar rooms, it'll have a digital media lab, it'll have a consultation space for readers, it'll have a really beautiful reading. I think it's going to be a really great space. And the point about it is that it's a space that can bring medieval manuscripts, modern technology, and people together. So why, let's think of just a little bit harder about why you actually need to have a space that has both medieval manuscripts and the digital object. Why is it that you need a space like a library like that when you can have a library like that? And the library like that is a virtual library on your desktop, and you just click one of those images and it opens. I mean, why actually do you need both? Well, this is kind of an interesting semiotic problem, actually. I think the truth is that people think that this is what books look like and that this is what digital books look like. And in that, they're being misled. Because although they're apparently similar, medieval manuscripts and digital data are completely different things. A really useful medieval manuscript looks like the book on the left. Really useful digital data looks like the book on the right. And one of the reasons that we need, as a special collections centre, to be in charge of our digital production is because we flatter ourselves that we not only understand about medieval manuscripts, but we also understand about digital data. And we want to be in control of the production of that data and its licensing. And this really, really matters. Copyright. Copyright is crippling the digital study of medieval manuscripts. It's just an impossible situation that we're in. It's far too expensive, and you can't do what you want to do with a digital object, because what you want to do with a digital object is nearly everything that you can't do with a medieval manuscript. And one of the things that we are going to champion is Creative Commons data. All the data that we're going to produce is going to be Creative Commons digital data, so that anybody, from David Wallace to my son Henry, can do exactly what they like with digital images. And they can do it for free. And this is important not just because it feels like a nice idea. This is important because it empowers you to take ownership and to do interesting things with the data. And I will tell you that this is as true for staff members as it is for the scholarly community and the general public. And I have to say that since I've been at Penn, I found out a fantastic thing. The head of rare book cataloguing at Penn, somebody called Regan Cladstrup, and of her own free time, as well as cataloguing the rare books consummately, I should add, she took images, and she was allowed to take them as Creative Commons images, and she could do with them what she liked. So she was empowered to use this data. Did she load it onto the Penn website? No. She loaded them onto Flickr. And she loaded them onto Flickr because she wanted to crowdsource the provenance information. So she wants to find out as much as she can of the provenance of the book, so she just puts up the provenance page. And so she put up this bookplate, and then she tweeted, "Does anyone know the owner of this steamy bookplate?" And Sarah Werner was at the other end, and she said, "Yeah, this is it. It's Robert Hot Top, designed by André Rouvière." And now we know who that collector is, and actually he was a very significant collector who gave most of his books to an institution in Oxford. And now we can identify who that bookplate is. Another one. Somebody living in Cuba, his surname was Juaristi, wanted to know about his father. So he typed the words Celestino Juaristi into Google. And this is what came up. It came up one of Regan's unknown bookplates. And you can't read this, but I can. Yeah. So someone in the library writes, "Belongs to Celestino Juaristi, Havana, Cuba." So this guy replies, "That's my grandfather. Where is this book?" The book is at the University of Pennsylvania Library, so you can see the catalogue entry for it here. Here is the complete story. My father, Celestino Juaristi, still alive, attended UPenn in the late 30s. He never graduated from Wharton because my grandfather died his junior year and he had to go back to Cuba to take over the family business. In his haste to get back to Cuba, he probably left the book in his door. In any case, I'm glad that you guys have it, and I'm sure that would be his wish. He's now 97 and sadly senile. His biggest regret is that it was not graduating from UPenn, but there was no one left to manage my father's business. As a side note, the granddaughter, Paulina Juaristi, my daughter, is applying to UPenn this year. Hopefully you will consider her application. Unless you think that this is, just the general public. It's not. Let's look at this one. Alexander the Great. We put it up. We don't know what it is. We get the metadata wrong. We can't read the inscription. So somebody called Zena, and this is presumably Zena the printer. This guy knows what he's doing. That's his ID on Flickr. He writes, "The name should read Narses Laudinger. The Laudinger family were..." Let's go back. I think we'll do that. The Laudinger family were a wealthy merchant at Augsburg. CS this, Lexicon of Augsburg, under Laudinger S, where Narses is mentioned. And then he says, the NL monogram points again to Narses Laudinger. And then he says, the number 24 points to an inventory of the libraries of the Peutinger family in Augsburg. In this case, Christoph Peutinger, verified by Dr. Kunas, one of the editors of the library catalog under Konrad Peutinger. U822. U822 is a common shelf mark used in Jesuit libraries. Further information. Christoph Peutinger was married to Katharina Laudinger, daughter of Narses II Laudinger. Let's say we now have more than enough information about the provenance of this book. Now this is because Regan was empowered to do what she wanted with digital data, and she put it in a place where the public, and that includes the academic public as well as Celestino Juaristi's son, can annotate and comment on it. That's why this happened. And this is why Creative Commons data and getting the data out there is incredibly, incredibly important for the future of humanities scholarship. And you can't do that with real books. You can only do it in a digital world. And another thing that you can only do in a digital world is to unite collections that are disparate, as we're doing with our Geniza Fragments project, uniting collections from UPenn, Cambridge, the Katz Center, and the Jewish Theological Seminary. So if you're in charge of your data, and you're in charge of what you do with it, you can make it do all sorts of things that the original thing can't do. There are lots of things that I can't show you, and I can't show you them because I literally can't do it in a digital way, because the medieval manuscript is such a fantastic thing. It's such a rich thing. And any digital reproduction of that thing is not going to capture all that richness. And I won't go into all the details of it, but you know, one of the things that as a curator, this is very untrendy, one of the things that as a curator you really get to know is that the quality of something is incredibly important. If you're really trying to work out intuitively in your own mind how a manuscript fits into a culture, you can't really do that without seeing the original, because without seeing the original, you really can't get a sense of the quality of the parchment. You can't get a sense of the quality of the image. You can't get a sense of those things. And contact with the original is absolutely essential, and I simply can't show that to you. If you want to do that, you have to go to the phenomenal quality of Penn libraries and find them out. In a pedagogical environment, another thing you can't do, except through the original, is you can't touch history. It's quite hard to inspire people with digital images. You can do all sorts of things with digital images. You can give lectures with digital images. You can't thrust history into somebody's hand. I mean, the truth is that here is an undergraduate student turning the pages of a cipher manuscript that was given to Pope Calixtus III. She ain't gonna forget it. And she's gonna be inspired to do more. But the great thing about the digital world is that actually anyone can help. There's so much to do, from basic data entry to computer skills that we now need, as well as traditional skills of paleography and art history and everything else, that everyone in this picture can help. Even the guy in the middle can help. Anybody can help in the new world of an environment of manuscripts and digital images that we can create. But the only reason that anybody can do this at UPenn in particular is because of one body, and that's Larry Schoenberg. Thank you very much indeed.
Some time for questions if anyone would like to ask Dr. Noel any questions.
Nothing on the taxonomy of medieval manuscripts, please.
There's a microphone.
Sim.
That was really fantastic, and I think even though I don't work with manuscripts, I can really believe that this is going to be the new cool thing for years to come. And that's actually what my question is about. So I guess from the binding
I think we've already done that, Sim.
I guess what I'm asking is how, like, in a world where you really can't project what's going to come, what's your vision? How do you think that, what do you think is out there for us tomorrow?
Well, can you repeat the question into the microphone?
Yeah, the question is what is out there for tomorrow. I'm not actually going to answer that question in terms of library architecture. I can answer that question in terms of what I think the agenda for SIMS is over the next couple of years. It's to take the database and crowdsource it and make it available for the user community to comment on. Because for the last how many years, Larry, the database? A long time. For a long time. Yeah. Started in 97. So for 15 years, Larry Schoenberg has been entering the data at first by himself, and then with Barbara's help, and then with my wife's help, and then with other student people's help. And it's already the resource for provenance on medieval manuscripts. But Larry's getting tired, and we need to get the user community to enter the data. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to open it up to the user community on open software. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to take those 2 million digital images and make them, they're already available under a Creative Commons license, but we're going to make them machine searchable so that anyone can use them. We're going to, so you'll be able to download the entire data set at the touch of a button if you want it. If you want all of Larry's manuscripts on your desktop permanently, you can do that. Another thing we want to do is run with this provenance project that I just showed you, and I want to make it a finding aid for any inscription on any manuscript and any printed book that anyone wants to load up a picture of on their iPhone. And that would make PEN provenance central in 2 ways, not just for medieval manuscripts, but through this provenance project. So I'm not sure of things I want to do, but I haven't answered your question. I don't know where we'll be in 20 years. Carlton Rogers, our director, certainly wants us to be in the same place. He doesn't want to have to do this again. And I think that it is a fantastic space for the foreseeable future. Thank you. Okay, I think I've gone on too long. If you want to ask me a question, just come and grab me. Thank you very much.